Assalamualaikum and greetings to my lecturer, Puan Mazilah binti Abdullah and my fellow friends. Today, we would like to present our case study of DPA 50173 Professional Ethics. We were from class D85E. Let us introduce ourselves first. So the first one is Kasturi Anak Perempuan Manivalent, metric number 01D8020F2001. Me, Nurbainun binti Hassan, 01D8020F2003. Third one is Adia Izzati binti Amin, 01D8020F2019. And the last one is Eng Ziyi, 01D8020F2021. Before I starting, let me define about whistleblower first. So whistleblower is an individual that expose corporate or federal wrongdoing through judicial examination in the hopes that ethical violation may be corrected. So the importance of whistleblowing is enable justice and transparency. In your company, it could encourage a culture of openness and accountability. This empowers workers and creates an organization that rejects wrongdoing. Overall, it makes for an environment in which workers can feel safe and protected from issues that could harm them. Next. So the topic for case study 1 is Olympus scandal. I will proceed the case by telling little stories about this case. So whistleblower Michael Woodford was appointed as CEO of Olympus Corporation, which is a Japanese camera and medical equipment manufacturers. And he exposed corruption in 4 acquisitions, including a $687 million transaction fee. Kikukawa and Yamada were given suspended sentence and fines for their roles in the accounting scandal, which resulted in $48 million in compensation for investor. Next, for the question 8 that require us to discuss the accounting irregularities did Michael Woodford uncover at Olympus. So the accounting irregularities did Michael Woodford uncover at Olympus are: first one, 3 of the companies, a recycling company, a cosmetic company, and food container company, had cost Olympus $1 billion, but their asset had already been written down to a fraction of that amount on the balance sheet, indicating their asset were of no real value to the corporation. Further inquiry found that all 3 firms were registered in the Cayman Islands. So the next one, immediately after being bought by Olympus, all 3 firms were dissolved and shuttered. The second, Woodford found Gyrus, a UK-based medical device manufacturer, was booked for $2.2 billion in 2008. The acquisition included $687 billion transaction fee to 2 investment bankers, with the monies moving into a Cayman Islands account that was similarly closed shortly after the sale was completed. So the third one, on 11 October 2011, Woodford found that suspicious that a series of clear accounting irregularities had destroyed $1.3 billion of shareholder value in what he described as a catalog of calamitous errors and exceptionally poor judgment. Next. After that, for question B, require us to discuss on how the executive leadership respond to workforce revelations. So Kikawa and his board directors came to responded and a vote to fire Woodford from his position as CEO after 3 days. Seeing Woodford found and expressed his suspicions that a series of clear accounting irregularities had destroyed $1.3 billion of shareholder value in what described as a catalog of calamitous errors and exceptional poor judgment. Now, I will pass the presentation to Alia Izzati to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Bainon. So for the next question is describe the message that Olympus board transmit in firing their chosen CEO who become a whistleblower. So for the first point, we use Colbeck model features 3 levels and 2 stage, with level 1 is highlighting a self-interest orientation leading to the cover up of financial losses. Uh, for that is for the explanation is we use the model for Olympus executive Hideo Yamada and Isashi Mori operated at this base level by continuing to perpetuate the notion that nothing was wrong. The cover up resulted in the necessity of hiding ever larger losses. Like many such scandal, by the time the truth came out, it was much worse than if the original loss had been reported. The second one is executive operate on an authority and social order orientation orientation to maintain a social norm by no. At level 2, stage 4, the executive operate on the authority and social order orientation, the same culture that was relu- reluctant to report bank losses now transferred that thinking into corporate headquarters. A social norm was maintained to make it appear that the company was operating without unusual problem. The last one is at stage 3. No, Olympus executive no, the last point is Olympus executive choose self-interest over a higher calling, leading to a disastrous disaster at level 3, stage 5. At this point, behavior should reflect the concept of a social contract, but Olympus choose the lower stage of self-interest rather than a higher calling to individual beyond its immediate corporate culture. The resulting disaster nearly took the company down. Next question is explain whether the action taken by Woodford could have been more effective if it had taken a longer term approach to addressing the accounting scandal rather than the shutdown approach we took with Kikukawa. So our answer is we would disagree if Woodford had used a longer term approach to resolving the accounting fraud rather than the showdown approach he did with Kikukawa because the accident include former Olympus executive. And another reason is the all executive board would have repeatedly attempted to consider the issue of capital loss and accounting irregularities until all issue finally came out if he had chosen a longer term strategy for handling the accounting controversy. The damage the damage will be much worse at that time. It indicates that if Woodford sought to investigate and form the evidence, the board of directors would terminate him. So as long as Woodford has the power as a CEO, he has the right to save his company even if it means taking difficult steps. The last question for case study 1 is after the 2020 accounting scandal, Olympus Corporation commit conclusion on how the punishment for a white collar crime look to the public and diminish respect for for ethical accounting standard. So the point is the Olympus imaging case has received international attention with multiple pieces appearing in the Wall Street Journal and other financial journals. So students should be asked to locate and report on such item. Student comments should contain results from Japanese publication as as well as US article. Japan is known as a worldwide for its lost decade. How has Japan unwillingness to deal with difficulty partially extending the time it required to get back on its footing? It may be useful for the student to track the number of resignation and at what level they have occurred since the controversy began. Noted, Notably, in the United States, Frank Dobb has mandated more open governance for publicly traded firms. Company must now have a documented policy on how they will handle customer complaint among other things. So that's it for case study 1. So I'm going to pass to the next group for case study 2.
So thank you, Alia. Exactly. I'm Engzi, so I'm going to continue with our case. So before I explain about our case study, so I will talk about the definition and the importance about corporate governance. So the definition for corporate governance is corporate governance covers the areas of environmental awareness, ethical behavior, corporate strategy, compensation, and risk management. So why was corporate governance is important? Because it outlines a company's ethical beliefs and provide a working roadmap for a company's objectives and activity, activities. So corporate governance is actually important for a company. So next. So actually, our case study is about Deepwater Horizon. It's about a company, a petroleum company that named BP. BP. Yeah. So BP rebranded as Beyond Petroleum in 2000 in year 2000, but failed to address safety violation, leading to costly fines and the largest oil spill in history. Critics argue that BP's acquisition strategy created a focus on cost containment. BP's response to the Deepwater Horizon spill was described as a scramble to spread the blame. Tony Hayward was reassigned to a non-executive role, but his commitment to a safer BP was not fulfilled. BP announced an $18.7 billion settlement of all federal, state, and local claims arising from the year 2010 spill. Next. Next slide, please. So the first question requires us to give 3 examples of corporate governance that BP failed in oversight and decision capabilities. So when BP has a poor corporate governance, the business can end up with a lack of risk management. Eventually, this may result in greater probability of the company making poor decisions, which will result in hazardous outcomes. So from the case that we look at, there are 3 example we give. So the first one is the field transformation of BP. When British Petroleum has failed its oversight and decision capabilities was when BP fails to correct safety violation. Therefore, the cause of it was the explosion at an oil refinery which happened in Texas City at the year 2005, which has killed 15 workers and injured hundreds more. So because of this point, because of BP doesn't doesn't like they don't have a proper corporate governance. That's why it happened, the injured of their workers. And the serious one, there are also some workers died. So secondly, BP failure to correct corroding pipelines caused the shutdown of an oil field. This case is about the leaking BP pipeline in Alaska in the year 2006. This forced the shutdown of one of the nation's biggest oil fields. It shows that BP lack of consistent risk assessment that has caused the shutdown of the oil field. Because of BP, they didn't think about before they did the activities, they didn't think about the risk. That's why it caused a big uh a big leaking of the pipelines. So the last one is the Deepwater Horizon explosion in 2010 cost $42 billion in fine, compensation, and clean up operation in the Gulf of Mexico. So in this case have happened in year 2010, which result 11 deaths and broke open the Macondo well, allowing an estimated 19 million gallons of crude oil to flow into the Gulf of Mexico. It has cost a total of 42 billions was set aside for the payment of fines, compensation to victims, and ongoing cleanup operation in the Gulf of Mexico. So this shows that BP are also don't have a social responsibility. That's why this have caused the pollution of the sea of the deep water horizon. So next next slide. Yeah. So the next one is other ecological disaster that BP has involved since year 2000 that should have alerted the company to improve the risk management process. So there are one of the ecological disaster that is Thunder Horse Rig BP showcase platform which towered 43 stories above the water. When the storm hit, BP's state-of-the-art rig toppled over. After an investigation, BP discovered that the storm wasn't the problem. It turns out that BP engineers had incorrectly installed a number of values that are meant to control the flow of water in the supports that keep the rig afloat. And the rig, as a result, took on water instead of shading it. So the next one is in October 2009, gas at the field central processing plant leaked because of a stuck valve. BP operators were unaware of the leak because a pilot flame was not lit and security cameras was not pointed in the right direction. The committee said this incident could have caused an explosion. Mr. Hayward acknowledged that the gas leak could have been serious, but insisted it wasn't an incident. So the last one is one serious near miss was at BP huge oil refinery in Whiting, Indiana in year 2014, where failure to record data properly led to $258 million in lost production, the report found. So another was at BP's chemical plant in Hull, UK, where a piece of equipment was not operated correctly, causing damage of $35 to $45 million, which another failure saw critical blueprints that had gone missing during critical operation activity. So this is the out of the incidents that we said before at the question A, this is the other 4 incidents that have ecological disaster that BP have involved since 2000. So that's all from me. I will pass to Kasturi to continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Zui, for your points. Next, I'll be continuing with the next slide. Our next question is, describe whether BP's corporate culture was ethical or not. To determine whether the BP's corporate governance was ethical, we could see that it was not ethical based on its previous mishaps. As an example of this, when BP did not take the proper actions they needed to secure the oil rig and ensure the safety of those on the ring and the ocean's ecosystems. The corporate culture that BP revealed is that they care more about their operations being cost effective than the safety of their own employees. They focus more on cost containment to maximize their own profits than actually prioritize the risk assessment needed to prevent these mishaps from happening. It shows that BP would rather save their money than fix its apparent issues. In a corporate governance ruling, top managers are the ones who play the most critical role in promoting this type of behavior. The individuals in senior management decided not to adhere to the safety protocols that were supposed to be in place. Also, the individuals in top management were the ones who did not want to take the money to properly fix the various leaks and cracks that contributed to the failure of the rig and the explosions. Instead of worrying about the money at stake, if the corporate governance in BP was truly ethical, the top management would instead have prioritized the environments and the worker safety and have taken the appropriate safeguard needed to prevent all this from happening. So this proves that the corporate governance followed in BP was not ethical, as it has caused so much damage to so many parties. Next, BP's corporate strategy was to acquire the project offshore drilling and to do it cost effectively. Because of this strategy, it had negatively impacted the ethical decision making. They did not prioritize the workplace safety of the employments, their lawfulness, or the right to the employees to do them no harm. Instead, the more concerning matter for BP was the amount of money they had to spend on the offshore drilling project, the revenue, expenses, and how to earn the most profit. Next slide, please. Next, for D, we have BP executive Tony Hayward that argued that changing the culture of a 100,000 person company couldn't happen overnight. He had been in charge for 3 years before Deepwater Horizon spill. In your opinion, explain whether critics are right to expect more change than they saw. To answer this, there was actually a report by Oceana which indicates the oil drilling industry has not done much improvement safety since the BP disaster, which leaked hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil in the Gulf of Mexico. The critics have been right in pointing out that nothing much has changed in the oil drilling industry since the 2010 Gulf of Mexico disaster. Lord Brown, who was the chief executive in BP before Tony Hayward came in charge, had also caused many oil rig accidents. For example, the Alaska accident that brings many losses to the environment and the public as a whole. So when Tony had taken over charge, instead of improvement, there were only more damages. It was right for the critic to expect more change as BP could have learned from its past mistakes and the dire consequences when they have failed to adhere to the safety protocols. Since the oil sector relies heavily on labor and creates a lot of jobs for people, it is a political problem that nobody wants to jeopardize. It has been found that the safety standards which have been agreed upon after the 2010 disaster has not been implemented. The management leadership has been reluctant to take strong action on the account to the wrongs of the company. Hence, it seems that there is less willingness on the part of the companies, say BP, to change the way they conduct business and the safety environment they offer to the employees. Next slide, please. Next, for E, it's, in your opinion, propose on how BP can build its reputation going forward and the roles should the CEO and BOD play in making this change. There are 3 points I would like to focus on. The first, in my opinion, BP's CEO and BOD, Board of Director, should think more about the health and safety of its stakeholders, such as the employees and even the public rather, than only maximizing the return for their own shareholders. They should always put their safety protocols as the main number one priority. For example, to improve the safety of the employees, VP could set up a common management system with precise safety rules and training for all the facilities, and also purchase insurance for their companies so that their safety and health is more guaranteed. This will also help BP in hiring more quality workers, as they know BP will prioritize workers' benefits first. Then the CEO and board of directors should also have social responsibility, as they should bring more benefit to the public instead of only focusing on their own profit. As the aspects of public, maybe BP can produce better quality of oil. Moreover, at the aspect of environment, they could make sure the process of oil filtering does not bring pollution to the environment, such as water pollution, which can be a common side effect in production of oils. So BP should focus more on building advanced filter systems. The next point that I would like to focus on is the leadership approach that BP should have, which should be a more responsible and sustainable approach. The first person to acknowledge this, that the use of gasoline increases carbon emission and has impact on global climatic, was John Brown, who was a former CEO of BP. He had modified BP's economic strategy to react to lower oil prices and to decrease carbon emissions. At a gathering, he also stated that business should take the initiative to learn from their past errors and collaborate with society to create a shared future. And under his direction, top leaders have received a training that was more concerned with statesmanship and diplomacy than technical proficiency. His administration was criticized for exercising authoritative top-down leadership and failing to pay attention to the problem the organization lower levels were confronting, which led to crisis situation. This shows that the top management or the CEO or BOD, anyone who has the full authority of the company, should focus on how to be a more responsible business and learn from their previous mistakes on how their business affect the society as a whole. And for our last point, BP should believe in a diverse mix of technology and fuels to meet increasing global demand for energy. Responding to increasing interest in non-carbon-based energy, BP institutionalized by combining new business development and socially responsible activities by diversifying into solar, wind, and biofuel energy generation. And they should pursue more innovations and create more renewable energy technologies. This can be done by not producing machines with high carbon producing index and instead use operational energy efficiency for reduction of emission, flaring, blowouts, and improve technology advancements in new projects and factoring carbon costs in investment appraisal. As a conclusion for this, we could see that there are a few steps on how they could find ways on how to improve and build a sustainable business by not harming the environment and adhering to all needed safety protocols to guarantee the safety and health of the employees and the environment. Next slide. Our references. These are the references that we have used for our slides and for our case study as a whole. That's all from us. Thank you.